Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old to history to anecdotes to really wherever our whims take us. The Enchantress, Marvel Edition. Amora, though she's not named that for some time. She's definitely not named on her first outing, just the Enchantress. Vis-a-vis when she's called Amora, I'm trying to track down the first instance of it, but to do so I must read Journey into Mystery, The Avengers, The Defenders, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor, and some miscellaneouses. I'm pretty sure I have found it, but I'm confirming. If my interest holds, I'll get back to you. The Enchantress was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and is not an original member of the Norse pantheon. Her intro as beguiling and love theme seems to be more in line with Freya, who is the goddess of such things, even though Freya herself would be introduced decades later in the 80s. The Enchantress also overlaps briefly some plot or myth points with Idun, the guardian of the golden apples, but a version of her appears in Journey into Mystery 114. So the Enchantress is her own being, because of course Thor is playing fast and loose with Norse myth. Inspired by would be the word. Now her first story sees her embroiled in quite the plot. It can be broken down essentially as thus: Odin doesn't like his son's girlfriend, and so he asks his other son to break them up. Odin's A+ parenting. He should write a book, How I Lost a Great Hammer, and a son, I guess. The Allfather story. Thor debuted in Journey into Mystery 83, and his mythos would expand from there, with many key characters being introduced within those issues. So his world would come to feel more and more full. Issue 103 sees the introduction of two Thor characters, not just the Enchantress. We have the Enchantress and the Executioner. We're gonna focus on the Enchantress side of things, but of course we're gonna mention the Executioner. He occupies almost as much of the issue, potentially a bit more, because he has a fight scene. It's axe versus hammer. So let's take a look at one of Marvel's many green-wearing baddies, who turned a bit more ambiguous over time. It's time to get enchanted. Oh yes, let the cringe wash over you. But before we get started, I'm Sasha, and if you're enjoying this content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Join us in this comic book journey. This story is written / scripted by Stan Lee, with art by Jack Kirby. Get ready for some Marvel method storytelling, but it's more cohesive here. Pretty well synced up this issue. This is a pretty cool cover. Thor fighting the Enchantress and Executioner on the Bifrost. Everyone looks distinct and interesting. I will forgive the fact that the Enchantress is not looking at Thor in the slightest. Maybe she's looking at me. Potentially. We promise that you will never forget the breathtaking Enchantress, but you will forget the Executioner. They're not even gonna promise that. They just know what's gonna happen. I can hear people who love Scourge going, how dare you even jest about such a thing. The mighty Thor menaced by the Enchantress and the Executioner. Hey, that's a pillbox hat. Looking chic, scared extra. The story opens with Thor returning to the past from an adventure that saw him having to travel to the future. But he's back now and blocking traffic, something that someone waiting in a car calls him out on. How mundane are these superhero events and occurrences that you would feel comfortable yelling at someone who just appears in the middle of the street? Oh, Thor, people have places to be. So Thor transforms back into Donald Blake and goes back to work. But once he transforms, he's much more tired and he just passes out, goes to sleep. And he dreams conveniently of what happened last issue, just in case you missed it. He's always looking out for you. Jane comes in and laments, romantically, in quotes. She knows that he loves her. Why won't he ask her to marry him? So we go to Asgard and Odin, who is the person who wanted Thor to go to Earth to learn some humility in the first place. But it annoys him that Thor loves Jane.
Although I am ruler of the gods, I have failed to drive the love for Jane Foster from the heart of Thor.
Priorities. Asgard must be a well-oiled machine if these are the things that he has to worry about. Loki is all over this. This is his kind of petty scheme. He says he knows someone beautiful who's up for the task, because if Thor sees someone more beautiful, then he'll break up with Jane. That's how that works. It's time to tap in the Enchantress. Only I know that the beauty of your form and face are matched only by the cruelty and ambition of your scheming heart. It's kind of great how well these two gel and vibe, but alas, as they say, they cannot be. Ah, my beautiful one, what a team we would make, if only. Do not say it, Loki. We are too much alike. We could never trust each other. The Enchantress really does like Thor, but it's one of those he's not really into her situations. It drives her mad. Mad, I say. But you know what might fix that? A new dress. It is a great dress. 10 out of 10. Not something I could wear, but I'll admire it from afar. Ooh, Jessica Rabbit. Enchantress gets all dolled up and goes to Don Blake's office full glam, and she's rude to Jane. My name is of no importance. You may leave us now, nurse. Boo! Be nice to nurses. She throws herself at Thor, literally. But he recognizes her, but he's too much of a gentleman to just let her crumble to the ground when she pulls the tried and true sprain my ankle maneuver, which of course is when Jane walks in. Why would she walk in any other time? And she storms off in a huff, so Dawn has to chase after her. Hopefully there were no other patients. Enchantress does not take being injected well at all. So long as Jane Foster lives, Thor will never succumb to my charms. The only solution is Jane Foster must not live. Soap opera logic, because if she's gone, he won't be traumatized with grief or perhaps swear a vendetta against the person who had her killed. No, he'll love you. She goes to the executioner, who she knows is in love with her, to try and get this favor done. And she says maybe she'll be his if he just does this one thing, one tiny thing. One murder equals one date, maybe. And that kind of wishy-washy guarantee is enough for the executioner. And he's off. Thor, meanwhile, has not been able to find Jane as Dawn Blake, so transforms into Thor to cover more ground. He actually goes to the police to waste their resources putting out an alert like she's a missing person and not just slightly mad at him. Thankfully, he doesn't get a chance to do that because the police report that they have something that might be just up his alley. An 8-foot-tall man wielding an axe walking down the streets. And Thor knows who that is right away based on that description, the executioner. And he is having much more success locating Jane, thanks to his, hold on, their words not mine, superhuman falcon hunting vision. Now, the Enchantress gave specific instructions. We all saw them. They were to make Jane dead. But no, the executioner decides that he's gonna get creative. Life and death are almost meaningless to those who dwell in Asgard. To them, there are many ways to execute a victim. It is not necessary to take their life from them. No date for you. You weren't getting one anyway, but now 100% no date. Your name is the executioner. Now is not the time to rebrand. He stuns Jane into limbo with his axe by, you guessed it, spinning it around real fast. But Thor shows up and now it's axe versus hammer. And it's one of those playground fights where the abilities keep ramping up with newfound abilities you never heard of until right now. Did you forget that I could conjure ice from my axe? Cause I can, but his hammer can knock the axe from his hand, so there. Thor is winning, so the executioner offers him something, a deal so that he can get Jane back, and the executioner can get something that he wants. His pitch is, axes are cool, but he's really always wanted Thor's hammer. Can he have it? If not, Jane's lost forever. Now, without the hammer, Thor will turn back into Donald Blake within 60 seconds. But Thor loves Jane, I guess, so he makes this deal. So the executioner brings Jane back, and then things just go off the rails.
I forgot, none but Thor can lift the Uru hammer.
You forgot the hammer's one big thing, the biggest thing about the hammer, and you forgot it and gave away your leverage. This is why the Enchantress isn't interested. And his day just gets worse because he had one job. It was to kill Jane, and he didn't do it. And so the Enchantress shows up and starts transforming him partially into a tree, partially into rocks.
My arms, my legs, no, no.
The executioner then gives Thor back his hammer and begs for his help. And all of this took 53 seconds. So Thor's secret identity is intact. Huzzah! What follows is an interesting exchange where the Enchantress tells Thor that her spells are without limits. She can weave anything she can think of, and Thor responds with, I'm not afraid of magic. Okay, but just because he's not afraid doesn't mean they wouldn't be effective. If she turns him into a coat and he's a brave coat, he's still a coat. But oh well, he's not afraid, so why even try? She tries to cast a spell on his hammer, but Odin made it so that no spells can affect it. Thor plays the Killjoy card. It's super effective. Thor spins his hammer around super fast and sends both her and the executioner back to Asgard. And now he knows where Jane is, so he can transform into Dr. Blake and catch up with her to patch things up, even though it was all just her jumping to conclusions. How I hoped he'd return, try to make up with me, but I won't admit it to him. Perhaps I can make him jealous with Thor. What a healthy relationship. I don't think that Odin has to do anything. This seems doomed to implode. Just sit back and watch. The Enchantress, not Amora yet. Now, this isn't the most stunning debut. Few of Thor's early stories feature breakout origins, or rather first adventures, because many of these journey into mystery stories take the they've always been their base information approach. The Enchantress, however, does have a couple of important features. She has a distinct vibe and look. It says a lot that her costume has changed little. Sometimes you get it right out the gate, and iconography can go a long way to establishing a character. Plus, the bones of foundation are here for her. There are interesting things to build upon. Kernels, sprouts, so many metaphors and allegories. She's extremely powerful, cold, pragmatic, but with some softer qualities potentially lurking underneath. Or are they? There's those grains of affection for Thor, that interesting relationship she instantly has with Loki, that kind of connection that cannot be or should not be something more. The fact that it's established that for a time people didn't know how cruel she was, so she can have all of these different relationships potentially. There are things to work with, but it will be some time before her potential is explored. I'm not sure if one can say that it's been fully tapped as of yet. What did you think of Marvel's Enchantress's first outing? That's a mouthful. Can you see why she caught on, or are you baffled? Do you just need more of Odin's sweet parenting tips? Share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.